All right, everybody, what is going on? Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well today. And we are rolling on with our little prediction series. And today we're going to be doing safety, which is strictly speaking our final pure position group. The remaining videos in this series are going to be more about categories, but safety is going to kind of take us home in terms of positional stuff. So safety is a position where I think the Seahawks are going to be eating pretty good in 2026. I think that maybe it won't be quite as good as last year in terms of the players we have, but I think it'll be a better year in terms of the play that we get because of health. This video is sponsored by Prize Picks, and when I say that, I'm mostly talking about Julian Love. I feel like some people have forgotten how good Julian Love can be. I don't think he's an all-pro safety or anything like that, but he can absolutely be one of the 10 best safeties in this game, maybe 12 if you're trying to be conservative and tight. To me, Julian Love is capable of being a really, really top-notch part of this defense. And because he missed about half of the games last year, people have understandably forgotten. But I think he's going to remind people this year, and that will compensate for losing Kobe, on top of the fact that I think we have some pieces in this safety room that I think are going to be able to replace Kobe beyond just beyond just Julian Love's health, I should say. So Julian Love, let's start with him. Tackles, I went with a 78. Could be a little bit more just because I think teams are going to throw the ball on the Seahawks a lot. And I think that that could lead to more plays down the field and more plays for a guy like Love. But I'm not going to go too crazy here. So 78, I think he's going to end up being a little bit more of our deep safety, if I had to guess. Again, safeties in this defense do both, but I could see Love kind of sort of being the free safety a little bit more than Okada. So I went with the 2 tackles for loss. I don't think there's going to be a ton of box play for him. And again, this is not a defense that prioritizes tackles for loss, it feels like. The only guys on this defense that get a lot of those would be Drake Thomas and I'd say Nick Eamon-Wari. This defense kind of prioritizes different things. Interceptions, we got 3 of those. He's always been a pretty good ball hawk when he's been healthy. So I think he can find his way to 3 picks. And I went with 12 passes defensed. Safeties typically don't get a ton of these, but he'll get a decent amount. So we're going with 12 there. Quarterback pressures, I think there's going to be a decent amount of blitzing this year, even though I don't think Love will play in the box a ton. So I'm going to go with 3. Just seems nice and modest. Yards allowed in coverage. This one's always tough because safety plays really volatile when it comes to this kind of thing. So yards, I went with 295. I think that most of the damage will be done on corners. Love is not somebody that's going to roll up and play a lot of slot corner, I don't think. He's going to be kind of the last line of defense on a decent chunk of snaps. And I think that's going to keep the yardage down because it's hard to hit those plays. When they do get hit, though, they're going to be bigger plays. So touchdowns, I went with the 3. He'll give up a big play here and there. It's hard to avoid. It's just going to happen from time to time. But Love is going to have a really good season. Maybe he makes the Pro Bowl, maybe not, but he'll be around there. And I don't know what his future is beyond 2026 on this team, but I do think that he will be a very important part of this defense. So, Julian Love, really good season, and I'm excited to see him bounce back from last year's injuries. If you like sports, then the best way to make them even better and more exciting is using the Prize Picks app, where it always feels good to be right. Prize Picks makes daily fantasy simple. Just pick more or less on your favorite players and build lineups with a few taps. Whatever sport you're into, and obviously we are now firmly into the NFL offseason, so we're all about baseball, we got some basketball, we got some hockey, whatever it is you like, Prize Picks gives you a fun way to stay locked in while you're watching. Definitely make sure to use the promo code HMA. Prize Picks is hooking up users with $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. If you use that promo code, that is HMA. I've had a great time on Prize Picks so far, so definitely get on over to it, check it out, and make sure to get your lineups. And don't forget about team picks, where you can pick winners, spreads, and totals on any major game. So download the app now, use HMA, and get on over to Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. And remember, always gamble responsibly. Okay, so that's the top dog here, but don't forget about Tai Okada, who is trying to solidify his place in the NFL. He's still a couple years away from being able to get a big contract because of the restricted tag, but he will have to work really hard over the next couple years to maintain his level of play. The good news is he played really well when he played last year overall, so I think he can do it. Tackles, I went with a 70. That's another number that I could see going a little bit higher because I think he'll be in the box a little bit more. But again, if I'm giving a lot of action to the guys in the front seven, which obviously I am, and then you've got a guy like Eamon Worry and guys like Witherspoon that sop up a lot of tackles, there's less for these guys. So 70 tackles for loss, but I went with 70 tackles, but 4 for loss. So pretty strong there. Interceptions, I went with 3. He had the really cool interception last year, but that was the only one. But you give him a full year and you put him in this defense, which I think is going to be biblical against the run. There's going to be a lot of passing, and eventually the ball's just going to find you. And he's proven he has pretty good hands. Remember, he had that pick on Green Bay too that probably shouldn't have counted in the preseason, but it did show he has good ball skills, so why not? Passes defense, I went with a 9 here. I don't think he's quite as good at the ball skill stuff as Love, but like I said, there's going to be a lot of passes, so the ball's going to find him. Pressures went with 5. Seems like we like to blitz him a little bit more than guys like Love and Kobe. So going to be a decent amount of that. 398 yards. I expect him to be one of the guys that opposing offenses kind of go after a little bit because they view them as a weakness compared to guys like Love and Spoon and even Eamon Worry. Like Okada will be considered a little bit of a mark just because he's not going to punish you as much. And touchdowns allowed, I went with 4. So it'll be a fine year. Again, safeties typically don't give up massive yardage, although that does occasionally depend on the kind of defense that you play. But remember, because of Nicky Minwari, the guys like Love and Okada are not going to be rolling up into the slot corner spot as much as they would in another defense. Because as much as those guys can do it, Eamon Worry was so effective at it last year, I don't think you want to take him away from that responsibility very much. Okay, Bud Clark is next up here. Now, I don't think Bud Clark is going to start day 1, and I think it's going to be a couple months before he has a realistic chance to become the starter. But I do think that he could end up taking over at some point this year without injury. Now, realistically, somebody will probably get hurt, and then that's how Bud Clark gets to play some this year. But predicting injury is kind of dicey, especially when you're talking about a guy like Julian Love who's had one significant injury in his career. Like, I don't want to make assumptions that he's just going to be injury prone for the rest of his career. So Bud Clark, I don't think he's going to play a ton, but remember, he is probably going to be our dime corner, and he might also get out there on the field in 3 safety looks. So 31 tackles. I think he'll be involved a healthy amount. Tackling will not necessarily be his strong suit, but he's not terrible at it either. No tackles for loss. I don't see that being a big part of his game, but I'm going to bet on the ball hawking skills and go 3 interceptions. And that's a lot for a guy who I don't think is going to play a ton, but I think he'll play a lot in pass-heavy situations, and he just has a knack for the ball. So Bud Clark, I know that he won't be a starter, or at least I don't believe he'll be a starter, but I do look to him playing in those situations where you know the other team is going to pass a lot, and he can probably make something happen. 5 passes defensed. Again, he's proven in his history that he is exceedingly good at turning pass breakups chances into picks. So I don't think it'll be a lopsided ratio. No pressures. I don't think he'll be involved in anything like that yet. He will give up some stuff. He is a rookie. And he is a guy you might occasionally see play a little bit of corner as well because he did so much slot work at TCU. And sometimes you're just going to get beat. So 188 yards and a touchdown for him. Nothing too bad, but he might end up being a little bit of a target for opposing offenses when he's out there. So hopefully he's able to make enough interceptions to punish that. So those are really your three guys that I'm thinking about right now. The fourth safety, I got Rodney Thomas, the second, and obviously he's not a big consideration. 8 tackles, 22 yards. He'll pick up a little bit of garbage time stuff. Not really much to say. And that gives you your totals of 187 tackles, 9 picks, 6 tackles for loss, 26 passes defensed, 8 pressures, 903 yards allowed, 8 touchdowns allowed. So, I mean, it's not going to be the best safety room in the league if you're just looking at these guys, but it's going to be probably better than what we had last year. And what we had last year was fine. Julian Love, hopefully getting more than half the season this year is huge. So, yeah, that's what I got. And it's tough. Admittedly, safety play is always a little bit random, but I think we're going to get good stuff out of this group. All right, so I'm going to get on out of here. See you guys later. Go Hawks. Everyone have a good rest of your day. Going to be at least one more video later, probably more. And I hope to see you guys soon. Everyone enjoy, and we got a few more videos in this series, but let me know what you think of the safeties.